And I want to know what you would do on the council to straighten this out, because this has been an ongoing problem. And not to pick on anyone in particular, but after reading Paul's blurb in the newspaper, he was one of the people that voted for allowing this expansion. And our zoning specifically says a non-conforming use, the building or use cannot be expanded, yet it's being allowed.
Okay, so your question is, what would
What
they
would you do to follow our ordinances, court orders, on zoning? It doesn't matter whether somebody agrees that the zoning or the ordinance is correct or not correct. If that's what's on the books, that's what needs to be followed. And I
Okay.
can give you multiple examples.
But we don't, because this is just a question thing. So we'll start with Mr. DeMarco.
How convenient that it just worked that way. Thank you. Yes, I did vote for the expansion of the building or the creation of the 4,000-foot building there. As a planning board member, with the way I understood it, and I believe this is completely correct, is that this was a business that was been there since the 1950s, and they had been operating the dismantling of automobiles essentially in mud. And as a person who plays around with cars as a hobby, I've torn apart cars in my garage and seen the stuff that comes out of them. And from my opinion, this building would give them a way to do that operation without that disgusting stuff that comes out of vehicles pouring into the ground, especially with the wetlands right next door. So in my opinion, this was a way to protect the groundwater in the town of Londonderry, especially for the residents up in that area, and that they could continue to operate. As far as being a town councilor, I would want to see the facts on, and I know Mr. Belinsky is very good, he has everything kind of all lined out, and if it comes before us, review those facts and see if there's an issue that needs to be resolved, and then do what we have to do. So that's my answer.
Okay, Mr. O'Keefe.
I echo a lot of what Paul was saying. You really, as a counselor, if elected, you'd have to sit there and take a look at all the facts presented. There's a lot of things that I haven't been privy to, that I haven't seen. I only can go by what I see when I watch the meetings and the issue comes up. There are questions that I would have if I was a counselor that would need to be asked and answered by our town manager in some of the code enforcement. If there are court orders, I'm kind of not understanding why they're not being followed and why, really there should be somebody answering for that and being held responsible. So if we're ignoring the law, then that's not a good thing. So I think that I'd have to see all the facts, but ignorance of the law wouldn't work with me. I'd say that it should be being followed.
Thank you. Mr. Vermillion.
Thank you. And I'm glad you asked that question. I live in the northbound part of Londonderry, and I drive by that business every day. And personally, I think it's an eyesore. If it's an EPA issue, I'm all for maybe having federal funds go to a super fund to clean it up. I believe we have 2 other records in Londonderry, and I believe we should follow the letter of the law. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brown.
Okay. Like Tom, I kind of knew Richard was going to ask this question, which is fine. Actually, Richard started with voter apathy as the kind of concept that he wanted to lay this out with, and it's nice to see that as a voter, he's not apathetic and he's down here asking what he should be asking. So, for what it's worth, Richard, I'm glad you're not apathetic here. I, like Paul, had a role in this from a volunteer perspective. I currently serve on the ZBA as the chair. I was one of the voting members that voted on a variance application which we had received from the applicant, and my vote is public record, and Richard knows what my vote is. I did not agree with granting the variance, but 4 other members did. So that's just a factual data point I wanted to throw out. And I would give my reasons for anyone who wants to know, offline, because it would take a while. As far as enforcement efforts go, I have a real strong view in this area. They need to be consistent. they need to be swift, and they need to be fair. I think that's what anyone would ask for. Please be consistent, please answer my concerns in an expeditious fashion, and please be fair. And that's how I view the town's role and policies in terms of enforcement, okay? This also is a direction situation, i.e. the town council's role is to provide direction to their direct subordinate, the town manager. The town manager works for 5 town councilors. It's a fact. That's the way it's supposed to be. The town council is supposed to give direction to the town manager, who then implements it through the departments that roll up to him. So as a town councilor, I would urge the town council as a body to get together and form a consensus to review our current enforcement practices, because there's nothing wrong with reviewing them, and then direct the town manager to implement what we want done. And what I would do is I would direct the town manager to implement a consistent, swift, and fair enforcement policy.
Thank you. Mr. Carrier.
Thank you. That's a good question, Richard. I'm a very positive person, so I don't like to look at things in a negative view. So I'm thinking that it's voter satisfaction and not voter apathy. The simple answer to your question is, if there's a violation with codes, ordinances, court orders, whatever, it needs to be enforced.
Plain and simple. All right, thank you very much. We have time for one more question. There we go. I'm sure it's an excellent one, as all the others have been.
Thanks. I'm George Herman, Otterson Road. First off, thank you, gentlemen, for stepping forward. Gary, welcome to the fray. You're going to love all this.
It's been a great experience.
Most of you have spoken about the development and the types of businesses that you'd like to see here in town. Now, given the fact that the vast majority of the land in the areas that you all spoke about is privately owned land, the town's got no say. People have a right to develop their land as they see fit. How do you propose to direct the town manager? And as Mike points out, you have one employee as the town council, and that, of course, is the town manager. How do you propose to direct that town manager to work with developers, work with the landowners, and work with our own Department of Economic Development and Planning to make the things that you're talking about happen in that section of town? And are you willing to hold the town manager accountable for making sure those plans are executed? Thanks.
Okay, Sean, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. The town manager should be held accountable. That's his job. That's what we pay him for. As far as the plan, they are private business owners that would be coming to town. And I think that the biggest part of the problem right now, as I see it, that I hear from a lot of people, is that it's very difficult to build in Londonderry. There's too many issues, too many obstructions, too many requirements. You know, requirements are good. I'm not all for just, opening up the floodgates and say, here, go ahead and develop it and put up what you want. But from what I understand, there's just too many obstacles that a lot of the builders just aren't willing to do because it costs them too much money. And when they're making, as a businessman, they make so much money per square foot. And if their square foot costs go up just because they want to, build something in Londonderry, they're going to look elsewhere so that they can put more money in their pockets and keep people working. So I think it's important that you look, as a councilman, you have to look at your departments and you have to review the processes. And like Mike was saying, it's okay to check those processes and check things to make sure that your system is working and working well. I think that it's very important to be able to be more business friendly and make it easier for the builders to want to come here, because the builders, they're gonna get the owners, they're gonna pay the money to them for their land. And if it's done up at, near the airport, that's a great place for it because there's a lot of area up there and there's not a lot of residential. If it's done right and if it's done well, then it's a good thing for the taxpayers. But I think that the most important part is, these town employees are paid to do these jobs. And when I hear from builders that they don't do their jobs well enough, or if they're having issues with getting things built, then you really do need to look at what we're doing. So, thank you.
Gary.
Thank you. And another excellent question. Development in Londonderry should be as needed, pick and choose for the right development and right companies that are brought in, but it is